Thank you so much for coming back to Heartbeat Narratives. My name is Molly Momrell, and I'm your host. And I'm thrilled today to welcome Francine to our podcast. Thank you for coming, Francine.
Thank you for having me.
We are here on a Happy Aloha Friday night in Kaimuki. We just had a yummy dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And I met Francine a couple months ago and just felt this connection to you. And I felt like you would have a really fascinating story, and I'm excited to see what unfolds in our conversation. And with Heartbeat Narratives, it's really all about talking about stories of our passions, whether it's a hobby, a person, a place, what lights us up, what makes our heart beat. So I guess the theme of tonight, what would you like to talk about? What makes your heart beat?
Well, a lot of things, actually. A lot of things that give me passion and inspiration, and it's just really difficult to answer. I came onto this knowing that I want to talk about the lost art of letter writing and, my journey from the past 6 months traveling from 3 different countries and how I've managed to connect with loved ones through sending postcards to them and kind of going back when I, first started collecting postcards. And it started like as a little hobby. Some kids would collect posters from movies, and I would collect postcards from the places my mom and I have traveled. Because she's got a travel bug in her, my mom. Like, she was a backpacker. She'd stay in like hostels and stuff like this. Sometimes it's for work, sometimes it's for personal things. And she dragged me along with it, and I'd bring home postcards, and that's what I would hang like on my walls. And it was a nice like little thing. On top of that, like, it just evolved. Like, I would get Christmas cards or congratulatory cards from grandparents and all these other close relatives, showing their support and love for the things that I do. And it just became little keepsakes that I would start putting more and more into my wall. And every time I'd wake up in the morning, I'd see that and I'd remember, like, I'm something cheesy or corny, like I'm loved, or I don't know, something sweet like that. But then you had one particular question: what makes my heart beat and what is it you love? And I think it's just so hard, trying to find one particular thing to make your heart beat. When you talk about like heartbeat, it's not just something that simultaneously like brings you love, but I feel like it's also something that gives you purpose, because a heartbeat is an indication of being alive and living. And you could have like different schools of philosophy. Essentially, like, what makes your heart beat is something that gives you life and purpose. A purpose for existing, something substantial, something that you can hold on to, something real and concrete. And when I think about something as deep as that, I go back to like my Voluntourism roots, which I've been doing all throughout medical school in the Philippines. And I think that's one of the interesting things about going to medical school in the Philippines is you get to go to all of these like really indigenous areas, really far-flung areas. Quite literally, you're out there in the boondocks, like literally out in the boondocks. Boondock is actually a Tagalog word, which means, yeah, I know, I'm surprising like so many people because they've used this expression their entire life and they had no idea that its roots are actually like Filipino, because boondock is a Filipino word meaning mountain. So a long time ago, when we were occupied by American rule and the soldiers were out there, and they were trying to describe the hinterlands of somewhere else, they were like, I don't know, it's out there in the boondocks, or we're out here in the boondocks, some far-flung place. And that's where the expression started. So we were quite literally out there in the boondocks with indigenous people who, didn't really have access to healthcare. Like, in order to get healthcare, they have to like, hike mountains, and they describe it as like going down and then going back up and stuff like that. And sometimes they do it with like babies. on their backs and children and stuff just to come meet us. And we also had to hike. This one memorable experience really was in Quezon province in the Philippines, and the hike ended up being like 8 hours because we were traveling with a bunch of other people, our sponsors from the US who brought the medicine.
Oh my goodness.
And there were locals helping us. They carried like a bunch of stuff on their heads and stuff. It took us like 8 hours to get all the way up there. We had to like climb up mountains, and it was raining, so our feet were sinking like I'm like up to my knees, like that many inches of mud. And what's worse is there were leeches in the mud.
Oh my gosh.
So I had like leeches in my socks and everything, and I had like really nice, like hiking boots that I've been using for like years in Maui and all these other places. And it just gave up with all of that suction from the mud. It opened up. So after we trekked up the mountain with all of that mud, we had to cross like a river with big boulders, and it was cold. So when you get there, you're muddy, but part of it is washed away, and you just end up like soaked. And it was quite an experience. It was really satisfying to see how the call of like medicine can be so incredibly humbling and so immensely gratifying, because you can greatly impact people's lives simply by being competent and by being kind. Just being present, because they'll happily meet you even if you're like 3 mountains away or something, because they know it's the closest that they could possibly get. And some of these people, like, we were not equipped to help them, obviously. A lot of them needed like dental care. So I have a bunch of experiences like that. I'm not going to compare it to like Doctors Without Borders or anything, because that stuff is like insane. But some of these areas, you're trying to make like a makeshift ER or something, or like a makeshift hospital bed, like in the middle of nowhere, with like, just imagine, mountains and banana leaves and rice paddies and stuff, and inside is like a little bahay kubo, or like, straw hut, and inside there is a spinal cord injury patient who just fell off from climbing a tree trying to pick a coconut or a guava, I don't know, some kind of fruit. He fell like maybe like a second story of a house, definitely that height. And he was a spinal cord injury victim, but he survived the fall, but he can't move and he can't really like speak. He was basically like intubated for nutrition. Our job was just to go there and like change it. But his wife still had to like buy it from the nearest drugstore, which is still like, a hike and a motorcycle ride away. And we were just there to like clean it and replace it and do all the bandage stuff and assess the sores and give advice on how to best approach this or address like any other issues. And it was part physical, part psychological and counseling help for the wife, because, no one really signs up for taking care of that kind of situation, even if you have all of the comforts of living in an urban house, like in a nice house in a big city. You don't really go on the rest of your life anticipating like a major illness affecting you or your loved one, and the psychological toll that's going to take. What more if you're living in a very resource poor setting? It's just too much.
How did you decide to go into the medical field?
Quick disclaimer, like, I just graduated medical school. I'm still in the process of like getting my license, especially here in the US. So I have all of these like stories about performing in the capacity of a doctor, but under a medical student and under the guidance of a doctor. So just have to get that out of the way. But really the main thing that got me into becoming a physician was, well, I was pre-med. I got a Bachelor of Science in Psychology in the Philippines, where I also did my medical school. I fell in love with psychology, and I did an internship at a public hospital in the psychiatry ward, which was part of, the requirements to graduate. And I just thought that, wow, this is a really interesting field. I loved, being active, working with my mind. It's a tricky business to differentially diagnose and to provide a rationale. Like it's kind of like an oral defense why this person might have this disorder versus that disorder. And it gets much more in the gray area when you're in psychiatry or psychology as opposed to any other fields in medicine. And I thought that there was something a little bit elegant about that. Like, it's not cut and dry, but you have to make it as simple as possible. And sometimes it's not always the case. But that's the main reason why I decided to pursue medical school. Not because I saw the lifestyle and I thought, I want that. I don't want all those sleepless nights. Not really. It just comes with the territory. But I thought that having like a medical degree could provide a more holistic approach to providing care for people with mental health issues. Sometimes there are, people who it's not just enough to get talk therapy or psychotherapy. Sometimes they also need pharmacotherapy, and there are different aspects to it. Over the years, there are more and more things that we're starting to discover about psychiatry and neurology and how different parts of the brain, organically are related to different symptoms like depression, bipolar disorder, Parkinsonism. It's a really, growing field with the advent of like new technology, all these things.
Very cool. I can tell that your mind is like always going, because it's clear that you've put a lot of thought into how you spend your time, really diving into what makes you tick. I can just tell that this makes you tick, like being invested into your mind, but also the well-being of others. So where did you grow up, and how did you end up, coming to Hawaii? Because I know that you are from the Philippines.
So it's really my dad who is my connection to the islands. He's had family in Hawaii for a really long time. He moved here and decided to like start fresh here and everything. And so when he got settled, I would summer frequently. At first he lived like in Kauai and then Oʻahu, and finally settled on Maui, and that's where he's raising my kid brother.
So you spent summers here in Hawaii, but the majority of your time was in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Where in the Philippines?
Manila. So that's the capital, and it's very urban. It's probably one of the biggest and most congested cities ever. So coming here and then going back home, it was just like, two different worlds.
Prior to us turning the microphone on, we were eating dinner and we were talking about how our childhoods have kind of taught us to be a certain way based on the societies we grew up in. Mm-hmm. And you grew up in the Philippines, and you've also spent a lot of time here in Hawaii. How they can be so different from one another, and you were a product of both places. So how did you become who you are? Let's dive into everything tonight.
let's it's some deep dive into Freudian psychology. No, as a product of two different worlds, your idea of who you should be and who you are and who you want to be, should and want to be, are two completely different things. And it's like trying to make sense of all of that to have like one complete picture of yourself that I'm not even sure I still have at this point. And all of that trying to come together and harmonize it's challenging. Mm-hmm. It's challenging enough, I think, for someone who, like, even if you just grow up in like one particular place and have like one, well, trying to meld like your idea of who you want to be yourself and your parents or whatever. But imagine if it's like two different cultures too.
Absolutely.
So, like, overwhelming.
Absolutely. How did you land here in Hawaii? Like, what brought you to kind of stay here? Because I know you visited a lot.
At one point, it started to become clear, like, what am I going to do with the future? Where do I want to work? Where do I want to settle down? And I think my dad has just been kind of nudging me in the direction of, okay, find a place here in Maui. He did it very, very subtly, but I could kind of get the impression that that's what he wants to do. Like, we have a house here, just, get a job here, and maybe you can sponsor your mom, and we could all like live here and stay here. And he kind of had this picture of all of us like living and staying in Hawaiʻi. COVID happened, so it was all study from home, and I stayed in Maui for those 3 years, doing my school work. It just kind of solidified this whole idea of living here and being here. I love this general vibe and feeling of like being in Hawaii. It was a little bit like superficial at first, but when you actually like live here every day, you just kind of fall in love with it. My dad did his best to really try to make a connection with me in Hawaii. There were like little hints. Through staying here after school, I've kind of like slowly been, finding my little niche on the island. And it led me to you and this podcast. And yeah, I just love the people here. Like the vibes of the island. It's just really nice.
I feel like it's really important that Hawaii have a strong healthcare community. And frontline workers, doctors, nurses, like the work that you do here is so incredibly important because we're on an island. And the needs are so great. We have a population of over 1 million people, and I just sit here in gratitude for everything that you are contributing and your colleagues as well, because I know that it's not an easy field to enter, and you're giving a lot outwardly towards others. So thank you for what you do. And so day to day, you are, like helping people. But in your free time, we were talking a little bit about letter writing.
Yes.
Could you share more about that and how this became an interest of yours?
Yeah. So I was saying some kids, they collect like, movie posters, they hang them up in their walls. When I started traveling with my mom at a young age, I decided I would collect postcards because it was kitsch and original. And then I just started falling in love with it. And the rest of my family kind of found out about it. And they started sending me stuff too, from little congratulation cards and stuff. Like most people, not to judge or anything, like they throw them away. They get the cash inside the card and then they throw it away. But I thought that, hey, these cards are like probably like $5, $10, $15, all the pretty glitter. Let me just stick it on my wall. And I got postcards from my dad from Maui, postcards from where my mom traveled to, and I started putting them all on my wall in my childhood bedroom. It just made me feel really good because each postcard, had a meaning behind it. It was sent by a particular person. It was very personalized. There's a whole story behind it. And just last summer, I traveled to Europe, like Germany and France specifically, and I kind of rekindled my joy of postcards, this time by sending them. I'd sent like some postcards before, but now was a time because I was consistently traveling for like 3 months where I consistently like wrote and sent from places that I've been, and I started falling in love with the process of you write and there's like, oh, this is what happens, and there's no limit to the creativity that you could put in those postcards. You could put like little drawings in there, little diagrams. I started putting like, oh, this is the places that I've been to and stuff, this is what I'm going to do next, and putting stamps on. It's, if you've ever like kind of fell in love with like stationery a little bit, that joy of like fresh paper or like a blank note, and then you fill it with all these like little things, and then it gets to them and they weren't expecting it, and then they open the mail, they're like, oh, this looks different, this is different from my Spectrum bill, let me just this looks like something I want to open. Oh, nice. It's the surprise and the joy. And they have those like little like barcodes and stamps and stuff like that from, sometimes it's like seasonal, like from the holidays or because it was from a different country or I don't know what. And it just all tells like the story of the journey that this little card has gone through to like get to you. Like they've showed me like different versions of the postcards that I sent. Some of them are like completely folded into fours. I don't know who did that. That was made me want to scream, but someone did that. Others were like kind of notched at the edges, or there were smudges and stuff. I totally forgot to bring it. Again, this goes back to my little postcard collection. I saw this old postcard from one of the little canals in France. They have those like little stores and stuff. So I saw this tiny postcard. Like there was this one guy selling like a bunch of postcards from the 50s and 1800s and whatever.
Wow.
With like the handwritten notes and everything. And then I bought it for like 50 cents or something. And I'll send you a picture later. It's really pretty how they made it like before. And I thought that, you know, it was like really elegant and nice, and there has to be some kind of resurgence for this.
Absolutely. As you were talking, I keep thinking about how exciting it was as a child to receive a postcard in the mail.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, my friend went to Montana.
Yeah.
And they saw this and they rode on a train. And this postcard used to be in their hand in Montana, and now it's in my hand in my driveway.
Being a kid, you're like, oh, your parents get all of the mail and stuff, but yes, there's finally one for me. I'm special too. I got mail.
Yeah, and it's so much more meaningful than receiving an email or a text. It's literally in your hand, and they put pen to paper and maybe put glitter on it and like picked out a stamp. I collected stamps as a kid, so this is hitting home.
Oh, do you still have the collection with you?
I think I gave it away, but for a long time I had like a shoebox full of stamps. And I also collected postcards that my friends had sent.
Aww.
And as you're talking, I remember becoming pen pals with my cousins on Maui. When we met, we were like around 10, 12 years old. And we would send each other these huge packed envelopes full of like folded letters, essentially like diary entries to each other with printed pictures of like our daily lives as kids, like going on a Ferris wheel and us playing soccer at the park. And just getting those like fat envelopes from my cousins on Maui was so exciting. So everything you're saying is hitting home. Thank you. So how do you make time for this kind of thing? Is it only when you're traveling? Is it your day-to-day?
I mean, it's a bit like tiring if it's like a day-to-day thing. Like I feel like it's gonna be like a bit mundane if you do it like once a month. Maybe like once a month to a few like different people. Like I would ask. I think there's something a little bit cathartic in that it's so creative to like write like a letter and do something with it. Like really there's no limit of what you could do. You could even put like a little comic strip on it, that if you're into that kind of like creative things, you could make your own like little like unique, I don't know, cartoon character. Some people like, you know, they have like icons like Tom and Jerry or whatever. You could have your own special like dog or otter or something that you could put on, and it's like a series of like different things. Assuming that they don't throw it out, you could collect it and there's like a little strip of all of these things that you've sent of like the otter doing. Or like even put like little puzzles in it. Really, like my mind is just like buzzing with like all of the things
I'm picturing
you could
you. I'm picturing you having like a very organized like desk with all of your art supplies and your fun stationery. How does that look like in your home?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's a bit different now because like I've moved houses. So I've just been settling here in Oʻahu, and so far my desk is a little bit messy. It's more of a stationery drawer. It's getting there with the art supplies and everything. It was in the Philippines in my mom's house where I had like huge sets like watercolors, poster paint, all of that stuff, and never endless supply of like colored pencils and paper and all of that. In Maui, I recently got some of my art stuff and brought it here, but I couldn't bring all of my paints because that was like too heavy. So it's a process of getting organized. If you really like invest in it a little bit, like if it's to someone, you know, that you know will like keep it, like your mom, you could start going a bit like mastermind-ish about the stuff that you like put on there. And trust me, like they always appreciate it. They always appreciate all these things, especially like analog things. I recently did it with my grandmother last year. She knew that I had gone to like all of these countries, but I don't think she gets like forwarded like these, you know, pictures, or some like don't get forwarded or whatever. So I did this really old-fashioned thing of like developing them and putting like little cards and stuff, and putting like calligraphies on the cards and of all the place, like the names of the places that I've been to, and like a little note for her and her sister, and they live together in LA. And I think that she really appreciates that because it's something tangible that she can also have like as a keepsake and always go back to. Because let's face it, she's not gonna really like look at her iPad, and sometimes she'll be able to do that, but not like all the time. And she has those like more things to potentially add to photo albums of growing up in my childhood. So I think certain people appreciate having that kind of, you know, analog keepsake memorabilia.
Mm-hmm. It makes me think of the difference between reading a physical book and like reading on your phone or like on your Kindle. There's just something about turning a page and holding it that just feels so much more real and tangible.
I think we need a little bit more of that, you know, to change the pace between like the world that we live in. It's nice to have like a break, because now, you know, when you study, it's all iPad, computer. Work is all iPad, computer. You know, you used to have like, and again, I wasn't alive like in the 80s or something, but as I see it, you used to have like these rotary cards of when you're trying to look for somebody's contact information. It was a whole rolla thingy.
Like a catalog of some sort? I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, because we saw our parents having it, and they when they wanted to contact somebody, they do the thing, or they have like a book, and then they pull out someone's name, and you had to like look at it by alphabet, and then it's not like you just type it and it's there. You have to like look for it, then you see it, then you dial it up.
Yes.
It was a whole process. And I think it's nice kind of going back, slowing down every once in a while to, you know, have like that kind of process.
I think we need it. Is there anything else that you've thought of as we've talked that you want to mention, whether it's about your work in the medical field or about this love of postcards and letter writing?
I mean, honestly, I feel like we covered like everything I could talk about, you know. It's such an interesting thing because when you had pitched Heartbeat Narratives to me, I thought of, what do I enjoy doing? I don't really know what I enjoy doing. Oh wait, I really enjoyed writing letters, but when I started answering the questions and got deeper into it, then I started thinking about all of these other things. And I don't want to make my life all about like medical school or medicine and then doing, you know, this and that or volunteer work. I did also volunteer for the American Red Cross, the Maui division, and we were teaching kids about fire safety, and we were distributing like smoke detectors in people's houses. And this was, I think, maybe like 6 months before the fires in Lahaina. I've been volunteering like a lot since junior high at an animal shelter back in the Philippines. I just love like doing the work and being helpful, whether it's to like animals and stuff. And I think that sometimes when you know, work to make life better for other people, you end up making your life better as well. It's like a win-win situation, and it gives you purpose. It makes you feel happy because you know that your energy is spent caring for something, and caring for something is always worth it, and it's always going to be fulfilling. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like in this conversation we've covered so many different sides of you. The very analytical side that has nerded out on school and
that could make Carl fall asleep.
Yeah. And then there's this creative, playful side that you tap into when you have a little more free time. But that shows that you're a dynamic person. And everybody has these sides to them, but they don't always explore it. Mm-hmm. So you reflected on everything and kind of like came to this conversation able to share that. So thank you so much, Francine.
Thank you for having me. I love the homework. No, I'm kidding.
It was homework, though. I definitely gave you a list. So thank you so much for coming. And mahalo, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode. Aloha.